Next order.
Order number 10, motion, ratification of the amended Nairobi Convention and the protocol for the protection of the marine and coastal environment of the Western Indian Ocean from land-based sources and activities.
Chairman, Departmental Committee on Environment, Forest and Mining. Yes, sir.
Honorable Speaker, I beg your indulgence because the Chair, Environment,
Yes.
is not in the House and therefore beg to adjourn that particular motion until a time when the Chair was engaged elsewhere, Honorable Speaker. We beg your indulgence and order the House to step down that business for today. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker had indicated that the Chair of Environment is away from the House this afternoon, and he had not anticipated, Honorable Speaker, that we will get to this business in the course of this afternoon, and therefore beg to ask that orders listed as motion, order number 10, order number 11, order number 12, be stepped down this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, since the Chair who would have moved those had requested for time out this afternoon. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Number 10, 11. Honorable members, orders 10, 11, and 12 are stepped down for this afternoon. Call out order number 13.
Order number 13, motion, report on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption and Global Parliamentarians Against Corruption meeting.
Leader of delegation to this United Nations Convention is in the House. Shakil Shabir is in the House. The matter is also stayed. Order number 14.
Order number 14, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable Speaker, as indicated, even order number 14 on the Miscellaneous Statute Amendment Bill, Honorable Speaker, there are still two chairs of committees who were to finalize their committee reports, and we had not intended to actually reach to this order in the course of this afternoon, and therefore seek your indulgence to also step it down for today.
Honorable Minority Leader, you call for a point of order when something is out of order. But you are calling for a point of order when you yourself is not in a disorderly position. You have remained standing throughout the proceedings, contrary to the standing orders. You have countenanced an unlawful choir in the House as the proceedings are going on. And you cannot benefit from the standing orders if you don't observe them. Honorable members, we have come to the last order of the day, and I order that the House now stand adjourned until Tuesday, the Tuesday, 13th of June, 2023, at 2:30 p.m. 3 for parties to confirm compliance and take further directions from court number 2. Honorable members, the Constitution has distributed sovereign power to the 3 arms of government in a very deliberate manner. Through a robust system of checks and balances, the Constitution has granted each arm sufficient powers to discharge its mandate and defend itself from unwarranted intrusion from either arm at the same time. For government to work in a harmonious fashion, each arm ought to refrain from inordinately wading into the internal affairs of its counterparts. With regard to the affairs of the legislature, the executive may make general legislative proposals, but Parliament is solely vested with the mandate of enacting laws. Similarly, though the court is granted powers to enforce and interpret the Constitution, it normally refrains from interfering with the internal processes of the legislature. Members, take your seats, the nearest seat. The nearest seats, please. Article 165(6) of the Constitution grants the High Court supervisory jurisdiction over any person, body, or authority exercising a judicial or quasi-judicial function. In line with the dictates of this article, the courts have all along distinguished the legislative role of Parliament from its administrative and quasi-judicial functions. Order, Honorable Mbade and Sabina Chege. Consequently, the courts have only exercised their supervisory jurisdiction to review the quasi-judicial and administrative functions of the Parliament when either vetting or considering petitions for the removal of persons from office. However, honorable members, the courts have always refrained from interfering with the law-making powers of Parliament. They have consistently limited themselves to reviewing the content of bills after their enactment into law. Indeed, any interference of the court in the consideration of a bill that is actively before the legislature would constitute a striking departure from established constitutional precedent and practice both in the Commonwealth and the congressional systems. This is a matter which both the court itself and my predecessors have ruled on. In South Africa, the court has held as much in the celebrated case of Doctors for Life International versus the Speaker of the National Assembly and others, CCT 12 of 206, ZACC 11. In declining to interfere in the consideration of a bill, the court held that South African constitutional scheme contemplates that challenges to the constitutional validity of a bill passed by Parliament must await the completion of the legislative process. Honorable members, with the foregoing distinction in mind, I note that the House has been taken before the courts, the courts, including by its own members, and the courts have ruled both in favor and against this House. The House will recall that in the 11th Parliament, the leader of the minority party, the current leader, the Honorable James Opiyo Wandai, MGH MP, did successfully challenge his suspension from the service of the House for the remainder of the 4th session. In his suit, the Honorable Member for Ugunja challenged provisions of the standing orders on the fairness of the penalties relating to disorderly conduct and their effect on the constitutional right of a member to represent his or her constituents. The litigation by the leader of the minority party significantly contributed to the amendments made to the standing orders to provide for different categories of disorderly conduct, graduated penalties ranging from suspension for a day to a maximum of 90 calendar days and an appellate process. During the same 11th Parliament, members will also recall that the court injuncted the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and Lands from considering petitions submitted to the House for the removal of the then Auditor General and the then Chairperson of the National Land Commission, respectively, pursuant to the provisions of Article 251 of the Constitution. Despite the disaffection of the House and the Presidium with the orders granted in the foregoing cases, the House nevertheless observed the directions issued by the court and halted its quasi-judicial and administrative processes. Notably, in guiding the House on the order issued with regard to the petition for the removal of the Auditor General, my predecessor, the Honorable Speaker Justin Muturi, rightly noted that the only avenue available in law to express disagreement with a judicial finding is an appeal against the decision of the court. Honorable members, I have in this 13th Parliament had occasion to uphold my predecessor's guidance in relation to court orders made against the House and its committees in relation to the exercise of quasi-judicial and administrative functions. Members will recall that on 15th of November 2022, the Employment and Labor Relations Court granted conservatory orders staying the vetting of nominees for appointment as principal secretaries in Constitutional Petition E186 of 2022, Dr. Mogare Gikeni versus the President of the Republic of Kenya, and 55 others, and in Constitution Petition number E192 of 2022, the Law Society of Kenya versus the National Assembly, and 4 others. In deference to the direction of the court with respect to the applicable administrative process, I did notify the House of the suspension of the vetting process despite the discomfort that the decision caused to the business of this House. Immediately thereafter, I instructed our litigation counsel to challenge the orders in court. As your Speaker, I remain cognizant of the obligation imposed by Article 3 of the Constitution on me to respect, defend, and uphold the Constitution in guiding the proceedings of the House. On one hand, the minority party has met all the procedural requirements to effect a change of its leadership. On the other hand, I'm confronted by a court order that specifically cited both the Speaker and the House as parties to a judicial process that seems to challenge an administrative process. Despite the sympathies I may hold for the predicament that the minority party finds itself, this House has consistently demonstrated its willingness to abide by orders of the court relating to the exercise of its quasi-judicial and administrative functions, even where certain orders